What's going on, FA Nation? Happy Tuesday, and welcome to the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS, a live stream for the four-game main slate we have on tap. I am James Grande. I am joined across the way by Sean Mitchell. Sean, this is our first live stream together, brother. I'm excited. How are you feeling about tonight's slate?
Well, I'm glad that we got a lot of the news that we were waiting on already. I know, we talked about it already. We're still kind of looking for the OKC news, waiting to see about Dennis Schroeder, Danilo Gallinari. But, we have got the Denver news. They kind of thrown a wrench in our research now because Torrey Craig's starting at the two, with Barton at the three. So, and then Millsap is in as well. So, it's good that we got the news early, but it's kind of thrown a monkey wrench in. So we're kind of having to fumble a little bit, but we're still good.
Yeah, and this is the gritty part of DFS. All that research that we kind of did can be definitely now has to be tinkered with drastically, and maybe something that we saw earlier in the day that we came off we can go back to, because like you said, the Denver value is no more. I mean, we're very iffy on Michael Porter, especially considering he's 4,500. What do we do with Torrey Craig?
Yeah,
I mean. Right. So, but let's just jump into the playbook, break down your playbook position by position. It is only 4 games. It shouldn't take too long to do, but let's start at the point guard position where we have 2 elite plays and then a bunch of really good plays in the mid tier. And the 2 elite plays that I mentioned, Luka Doncic and Russell Westbrook. Obviously, we do have a healthy James Harden, and he's going to play, and Luka has also been cleared to play. What are your feelings on them? Do you have a preference at the top here between Luka and Russ?
I was already asked that in the chat once, and I went with Harden just because I think that, if they don't have Harris, which they don't, that's really good news. Obviously, with Craig starting, we're pretty sure that he's probably going to be guarding Harden. But nonetheless, this is still the highest total on the board. It's in Houston. And I think that Harden can still go off. I mean, we've saw the upside. We know he has the upside. And Luka, we're still kind of wondering about, I mean, don't get me wrong. He came back and put up 78 in his game return from the last absence. But then, he had a 51 and a 35-pointer before he got hurt again. And he's still dealing with some injuries. We don't know the extent. We know that he's got, a wrist injury. Don't know if it's a shooting hand. I didn't get that information. But he's also dealing with a back, or an ankle or something like that. So he has multiple kind of injuries that he has going for him, and that's never a good thing, So I'll probably definitely side with Harden here at home. It just feels better for me than Luka on the road.
Now, what are your thoughts about some of the mid-tier guys? I mean, we talk about, upper mid-tier. We talked about it. You guys talked about it, you and John, on the live stream or on the podcast today about Kyle Lowry's price tag. On DraftKings specifically, very high. On FanDuel is way more reasonable, 7,800. Over on DraftKings and FanDuel, Russell Westbrook, 9,600. And then, Chris Paul, who could be potentially without Dennis Schroeder and Danilo Gallinari, and I'll even throw Jamal Murray, who you have in the playbook. In how do you like these 4 guys?
Obviously, it's Russ up top. I mean, I talked about that. He's already got a 34% usage rate over his last 5 games. He's been doing a lot. He's been playing a lot better since he was in the first of the season. Well, I'll say the first. He started off really good, and then he kind of had a big dip, and then now he's kind of coming back up. Definitely trending up, and his price tag is continuing to stay, right around that mid 9K mark. It's kind of hard to overlook it. He's put up over 50 fantasy points in his last 4 or 6, contests. The only other guy in this range can do that is maybe a Chris Paul. We haven't really seen it from Jamal Murray, even though this is one of the better spots for Murray. But he is on the road. For me, it's probably Russ, and then I'm probably definitely going to be looking at Paul. I think Jamal is more of just a GPP play, obviously. Chris Paul, I really think I'm starting to like him a lot more for his price, just because, he's been playing really well. As you mentioned, he might be without Dennis Schroeder, could be without Gallinari. Those are 2 guys that really eat up usage for this OKC team. And we've seen what he can do, 51.3, 35.3, 54, and 31 in his last 4. He's only got right around a 25% usage rate, but he's still doing everything else really well. So I think he's probably going to be my next one, other than, Russ, of course, is up there, but it's probably definitely between Harden, obviously on the shooting guard, Westbrook, and then Paul is where I'm looking.
At the value tier, still interested in Kai Bowman, considering he's not starting. They're sending out a lineup of Alec Burks and Damion Lee in the backcourt.
Yeah, I mean, for the price that he's at, 3.7, 3.1, it's really hard not to like him because we know, the last 4 games since he got recalled, seen at least 22 minutes over, or around that range, in between 20 to 22 minutes. So at that price, he doesn't have to do a whole lot. This game could easily get out of hand because obviously they're missing D'Angelo Russell, they're missing Willie Cauley-Stein, they're missing 2 really big pieces of this Golden State team. So you really could see the second unit play extended run in garbage time, and that would be perfect for Kai Bowman, especially at almost near minimum. So I am definitely still interested in him. I still think he's going to see minutes off the bench, and like I said, at that price, you really just can't afford to not look at him and be interested.
Let's move over to the shooting guard position, where I think it's pretty interesting because we have Harden. Obviously, you can spend on Harden in all formats if you'd like. If he's playing, especially knowing there's no Gary Harris, I think that's makes us feel more comfortable about playing James Harden. Even in cash games, I think it's perfectly fine. But then the rest of the position, I mean, we look at a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who could be potentially elite. But again, we're waiting on news that could hinder that slightly. Was he elite with Dennis Schroeder? Yes. Was he elite with Danilo Gallinari and Dennis Schroeder? Not as much. So I think that play is going to be contingent upon injury news. But Fred VanVleet, although he's pricey, he gets Cleveland, right, Sean?
Right. Love it. I mean, we've been fading that Cleveland shooting guard spot forever, it seems like, since J.R. Smith was still the shooting guard for the Cavs.
Right.
I mean, they've just never been able to defend the spot. That's why, I mentioned it. I think he's a great cash play. I love Fred VanVleet in cash. He's got a 27.5% usage rate in his last 5 games. It's literally been him. I know McCall has been playing a lot of minutes lately, but FVV is still the guy. And, other than Kyle Lowry, I think that he's that Lowry or that VanVleet is the play for Toronto, to be honest. I like Serge also a little bit, but I think Fred VanVleet's probably my favorite Raptor of the night.
Yeah, Cleveland, the 5th most fantasy points per game to shooting guard positions over the last month. So elite for VanVleet. You like that little rhyme? I know you do. Moving down your shooting guard list, Damion Lee, and you were kind of talking to us before we hopped on air. What to do with Damion Lee? Have you taken a stance whether you want to play Damion Lee? I mean, look, cash games, I think we can go there, but you're not the guy to talk to about chalk necessarily, because you like to fade the chalk more often than not, considering you're a tournament player, first and foremost. Do you have a stance on Lee in tournaments? I think we can both agree that he's fine for cash, but what's your take for tournaments?
I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's been playing really well. He's been putting up some really good games. His price has gone up, though, quite a bit. He has been, 7 or more rebounds. He's dished out at least 2 dimes or more. And he's had 7 total steals in the last 5. He's doing a lot of different things. He's playing really good. But, yeah, I'm worried about this Golden State game. I mean, I'm really worried. And don't get me wrong. It's not like they have a whole lot of other people that they can play. I'm just worried that it kind of gets out of hand and then they kind of just, I don't know. I could see a lot of the second unit getting a lot more run. I hate to even talk about blowouts because it's not something we really like to worry about. But when you're missing 2 of your biggest parts of your team, I mean, I know they still have Draymond. I know they still have Alec Burks. They still have some good players. But Spurs are pretty tough at home. So I'm really kind of worried about Lee. And honestly, I think he's going to be chalky. I think everybody is going to be on him because of his recent games. And I've seen a bunch of people on the Twitter machine already talking about him. He's getting hyped. He's been getting hyped over the last few games since he's been balling out. I could see this become just being a flat spot. I mean, just the way I feel about it. That's the gut feeling in me right now.
DeLon Wright. Let's talk about him for a second. Probably tournaments only. Yep. But, where should we project his minutes tonight, considering there's no Tim Hardaway Jr.? It's been pretty hard to get a read on Rick Carlisle forever and how Rick Carlisle handles his rotations. This is a guy who's gone for 30 more fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games. but he has yet to see more than 23 minutes in any of those games. Do you think that there could be a bump with Hardaway off the floor, or do you think this hoping and wishing for DeLon Wright minutes to increase should just be sent by the wayside?
I think it's reasonable to think that he could get more than 22 minutes or so. I really do think it's reasonable that he could see 25 to 26 is my hope. Like I said, we've seen the upside that he's putting up with just 19 to 22 minutes, which is pretty crazy for him to sustain that over 5 or 6 games. I really like DeLon Wright tonight. I think he's a great play. OKC hasn't exactly been the greatest against the guards, and even against a small forward spot who they're having to start Basley in or whatever they're having to start there. I really think that he's a great play. I don't think a lot of people will probably look at him. I am kind of worried that maybe Carlisle goes with more like some Seth Curry on the guard spot and some Jalen Brunson. But we saw what happened when Luka came back. Brunson went to nothing. Seth Curry, he's one of those guys that could potentially see more minutes, but I think the guy's going to be DeLon Wright tonight. I think he's going to be the one that's going to benefit the most from the THJ absence, and I think he's the guy to go to, especially at the price. I just think
he's the one who should. He's the one who should because he's the best one of them all. All right, I just got to ask. You could just give me a yes or no. Are we playing Torrey Craig min salary?
No.
Okay, let's move on to small forward, where we're not playing Torrey Craig either. But we do have DeMar DeRozan, who is shooting guard, small forward on DraftKings, shooting guard on FanDuel. A really nice price at 7,100 over on DraftKings. I think that's a very nice price tag. And then we have Will Barton. They're really the only two upper mid-tier plays at this position. Do we have a preference, one in cash, one in tournaments, or both in cash, both in tournaments? How are you breaking both of them down?
I really like DeRozan. I really think that more people are going to flood to Will Barton now because he's going to have to pull some more weight here with Torrey Craig starting. I don't see him being an offensive guy. Like we already talked about, I think he's going to be on Harden. I think he's going to be worried too much about guarding Harden, and then the usage is going to come within Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Will Barton. And also, I just think that a lot of people are going to stack that game. With it being in Houston with the highest total on the board, they're going to probably see more of the exposure. So for me, I think DeRozan's just an excellent play. I mean, Golden State has not guarded the shooting guard spot very well either. They've been giving it up to shooting guards and small forwards for quite a bit. I mean, GR3 is decent, but I don't really think that he can guard DeRozan. And like I said in the playbook, I think he's just one of the more underappreciated and undervalued players, not just on the Spurs team, but just in the NBA. I mean, this was a guy who was crushing for Toronto forever. He's still been crushing all season, long right now. He's easily got 45-plus upside. So I think he's the play. I think he's in my lineup, actually, so he's going to be where I'm going to go with over Barton.
Whichever position DeRozan is playing, whether it's shooting guard, Golden State allowing the second most fantasy points over the last month. And if he's playing small forward where, he at least starts the game at the small forward position, Golden State allowing the fifth most fantasy points. So either way, it's an elite spot. I do agree Will Barton for tournaments, always tournaments. I just wanted to see sometimes 4-game slate, things change. I don't hate, probably on FanDuel, you can get away with Will Barton in cash because we don't have DeRozan at small forward, and Barton's a top spend. So I think on FanDuel, you could probably play him in cash. Moving down your playbook, we have Daniel House, and we have Dorian Finney-Smith. You also have Michael Porter Jr., but we already kind of alluded to it. He's pretty much dead in the water, not starting. Torrey Craig starting. If you want a GPP flyer, I think it's a FanDuel-only play at 3,900 for Michael Porter. 4,500 probably can't stomach a goose egg, right? If he doesn't play at all, we're not making money with $4,500 zero. But talk to me about House and Finney-Smith. We can also throw in the likes of Alec Burks, who's a small forward on FanDuel. How about you break down all three of those? Rudy Gay is someone that we were discussing prior to the live stream. I mean, do you prefer any of these guys to the other? Do you still prefer House Finney-Smith to the other guys?
I think for GPPs, I mean, I kind of like the Rudy Gay call. He's just you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
He could see 18 minutes. He could see 26. You just don't really know. So the uncertainty there kind of is not really a good thing with Rudy Gay. That's why I say definitely just tournaments. But I'm not on him tonight. I think, Dorian Finney-Smith is probably one of the guys that I like the most because I know his role is solid. And also, I think with THJ out, I think that he could accrue just a little bit more usage. Yep. I know we talked about Daylon Wright, but, Dorian Finney-Smith is still seeing over 30 minutes a game. He just put up 29 fantasy points with Luka back. So for me, and for at the price, I know his price went up a little bit, but, I think he's 42 on FanDuel and 47 on DraftKings. Yep. So I think the price is fine. I think he's fine in either format, I'm not saying he's probably either going to get you 30 fantasy points, but I think he's definitely a cash-worthy guy because I think the minutes are there. He's solid. His floor has been decent. So I'm probably going to roll with him as my number one. Daniel House, of course, he's in that same boat with most of the other Houston Rockets. And, I hate to say it, but not a lot of those guys get any usage. Obviously, it's all ate up by Russell Westbrook. And now that Capella is back is even worse. Because there goes some of his rebound upside, which that was one of the big things that House did as well. So House would be DK only, and I don't really like his price because you're really banking on him making threes. And Denver is not a team that really just gives up the three-pointer. So for me, with the news the way it's falling right now, it's Dorian Finney-Smith, and I think Rudy Gay is fine in tournaments.
Yeah, Finney-Smith, 23 or more fantasy points in 6 of his last 7. So I'm perfectly fine with that for cash. I think that's an excellent, probably a last piece tournament play as well. If you have 4,200 lying around, perfectly fine.
Mind it.
Yeah, perfectly fine. Let's move over to the power forward position where
everybody active for OKC.
Everybody is active for OKC. So I think that changes our plans quite a bit. Dennis Schroeder and Danilo Gallinari active, probably bump down to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, considering his price. Chris Paul's probably still fine. I think he's been fine pretty much all year. I guess the question becomes, because small forward is so weak, we could just circle back real quick. Any love for Danilo Gallinari? $6K on FanDuel, and he's priced at, what is he priced on DK? He's priced at 6,300. If he's going to not be limited, do you have any interest in Gallinari at a weak position at small forward? No limit.
0 minutes.
There's no limit for Gallinari whatsoever. Any interest in him at 6,300, DK 6,000 on FanDuel?
I don't know, man. That's hard. Likely he's going to see Dorian Finney-Smith, who's actually a pretty decent defender as well. So I don't think I'm going there. Fresh off of injury, over 6K. No, I think it's a fade for me. I just don't really like it that much.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. I think it's fine on FanDuel because the position scarcity. But there are other options, obviously, on DraftKings because multi-position eligibility.
Yeah, FanDuel, and that's a good point. With the way the list is for small forward over on FanDuel, it's very, very weak. So,
right.
And what did you say his price was over on FanDuel?
$6,000 on FanDuel.
So, yeah, that's workable, I would say. That's workable.
Let's go back to power forward where LaMarcus Aldridge tops the list, followed by Kevin Love, Kristaps Porzingis. Do you have any preference up here at the top? Very strong at the top. Obviously, Porzingis, the playbook was written prior to the Luka news, so probably a bump down. But another guy we can throw in that top tier is Draymond Green, who you mentioned. And yes, Draymond is weirdly positioned on DraftKings, rather, not matching up with FanDuel. Listen, he should probably be a power forward across the industry, but he's not. Would you throw Draymond to that mix, and how would you break down this top tier of power forwards?
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of regretting not throwing him in here in the playbook because I think he is a stronger in that mid tier. I think he's a pretty strong play. I think that he could likely. The only thing, of course, I hate to keep bringing it up, but I hate to see them get down and Draymond not care, and then them, him only play 26 minutes and he put up, 22 fantasy points and just totally crushes the night. But, I know we talked about him a little bit before we hopped on. We do think he's just not going to get a lot of attention. I don't think he's going to get a lot of ownership. But I really, really like the other spots around him. Of course, up above a little bit. Like I said, LaMarcus Aldridge is my top play. I hate to say that because I just talked about the blowout, but I was looking at some of the games, and LaMarcus Aldridge is still playing over 30 minutes. It doesn't matter what happens. He literally plays almost all game long. For the floor that he puts up, we've seen him put up 50, we've seen him put up 65 now, so I'm totally fine with LaMarcus Aldridge at his price, especially on DraftKings at 7.6. I think that's just way too cheap. And then Kevin Love, and that's why I have them both over Kristaps, because actually when I did write it with the news from Doncic. So that is why I put Porzingis as my third power forward, was because I would definitely choose, and Kevin Love was a close second to LaMarcus Aldridge. Kevin Love having 3 days off, they've had a little rest. I think that game goes under the radar. I don't think anybody plays a lot of Cavs in Toronto. And I definitely don't think they play Cavs because everybody's worried that they're going to get blown out. So I think Kevin Love's really interesting. He's actually in my lineup. He's put up 47.8, 41, 42, and 50 in his last 4. I mean, that's really – that's a solid floor for his price going into tonight's game. And, of course, we know that Toronto's without a few people. They're starting Serge at the 5. They're having to start OG Anunoby at the 4.
HollisJefferson starting at power forward.
Yeah, so I was ready to bring that up because we just got word that Rondae HollisJefferson is starting over OG Anunoby at the power forward position tonight. $4,300 over on FanDuel. HollisJefferson $4,300 as well on DraftKings.
That opens up a lot right there.
Perfect. It's a perfect segue into your comments about not a lot of people playing Cleveland, Toronto. Well, I think this kind of changes a lot because he's $4,300, and we know RHJ has tremendous upside. He is a very good. He's very good at what he does when he gets on the floor. The issue has been playing minutes. I guess my question to you about HollisJefferson starting is, what would you project for minutes? We haven't seen him play over 20 in a little bit. It's been now 3 straight games under 20 minutes. He played 37, 28, and then there was a long period of time, about 10 games, where he didn't hit 20. Could you see HollisJefferson playing into the 20s tonight now that he's starting, or do you think this is just a way to maybe kick OG into overdrive?
Yeah, I know why they're doing this. They're wanting to match up with Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson. Right. They have to do it. They have to have size. OG, we talked about it already. He's just not that, he's a lanky dude, but he's not big. He's not a big body. He's not like a true 4. He's definitely more of a 3. So it's good, I think, for both of those guys, because I think OG, that actually puts him up a tick as well, going against Cleveland. So I do think RSJ can play into the 20s, and I honestly think he could probably play more like 25 to 28, as long as this game, of course, stays competitive. Who else do they have is the question, because he was kind of the guy that came in off the bench, and now, like I said, Serge is going to play more 95% of his time at the 5, if not 100%. So I really just don't see why he can't play that big of minutes. I just don't really see who else they were going to slot in, because they really just don't have anybody else, to be honest.
It's probably if anything, maybe it's a bump down to Patrick McCaw, who's been playing 30-plus minutes. Now we see more OG at his natural small forward position. Maybe they just keep playing McCaw over OG as well. We're not totally sure. But you do have PJ Tucker listed at the power forward position. Any love for Tucker, or does HollisJefferson's entrance into the starting lineup kind of take you off Tucker because it's an easy pivot?
Well, honestly, my intentions with Tucker was that he was going back to his original power forward spot with Capella coming back. I didn't think that Millsap would play, so that obviously plays into that as well. I'm definitely going to have to bump Tucker down and be more on RHJ here. I just think it's a much better spot. It's a much better matchup. Denver's really good on defense, and Millsap was an all-defensive player. I know he's a little bit older, but he's still pretty fair. So I definitely will have to go with RHJ, and honestly, that probably will happen as soon as we get off this live stream. So I definitely think that I'll have to bump him down and go with some RHJ here. So I just think it's going to be too good of a spot. I hope he doesn't wind up chalky, but I really don't think he will. I don't think he's going to end up that chalky, even on a 4-gamer.
Let's round this live stream out, Sean, at the center position, where we have John's boy, Nikola Jokic, at the top of the center position, 9,300 on both sites. Now, Houston isn't an easy spot by any means, but Jokic is the clear-cut spend at center tonight. He's the only player over 8K on either side at the center position. Do we have love for Jokic tonight? And if not, where else are we going?
Yeah, I do have love for Jokic tonight. I mean, he's just one of those types that he's really kind of unguardable. He's just big. He can do everything. And I really like him tonight because I don't think that a lot of people are going to pay up for him tonight. I just don't see it happening with guys like Russell Westbrook, Luka Doncic, James Harden. I think that more, and I don't want to say casual players, I just think more people will tend to gravitate to those guys knowing their big numbers. But when you look at it, Jokic's been playing really good as well. He's put up, I think I thought he put up over 50 and it looks like 2 or 3, I think. But the same thing, he's been really good. We know he can put up 60 plus. We've seen it. We've seen him go for 45 or more in his last 7 of 9 games. Wrote that in the playbook. So I think we could see a low ownership Jokic here, and it's a pace-up spot in Houston. And I hate to say it, but even though Capella rebounds really well, he's not really like the best defender either. So I think Jokic is totally fine here. I'm a fan.
And do you like Capella on the flip side?
I do, because of that reason, because Jokic is still going to get his no matter what. I'm kind of worried the health of Capella, but I think he's fine. He's cheap. He's really cheap. And obviously I always say that I feel like the correlation with him and Harden is going to garner more ownership for him, but nobody ever plays Capella, it seems like. It's really weird. You would think if you want to stack up, Houston, you're going to play Capella. But that's really not the case ever. I don't know if people just play a lot of naked Harden or just stack Harden and Westbrook or what. But I feel like Capella could. I think he'll probably see more ownership tonight, being a 4-game slate, being that game, being the highest total. So I'm totally fine with it. But I would probably rather just pay up and take some Jokic because I think he's going to be lower owned, and I think he has 60-point upside tonight.
Or we could pay down to the likes of Tristan Thompson, Steven Adams, in a good spot against Dallas, and the ultimate chalk punt play, Marquise Chris, who is a power forward over on FanDuel. He is $4,000 power forward center on DK, also very cheap, $4,100. Chris is probably the guy that we're just plugging and playing everywhere, right?
Yeah, especially on FanDuel for just his block upside. I mean, the dude can block shots like nobody else. Just for that reason, I think he's a great play on FanDuel. He's a little bit cheaper over there as well, $100 cheaper, not a whole lot. And like I said, I don't love the power forward spot over there. I mean, it is decent, but I feel like you can definitely pay down at power forward on FanDuel. Of course, on DraftKings, I'm just kind of stuck up there at the top. But, with him being center eligible as well on DraftKings, yeah, you can definitely play some Marquise Chris. And especially on being 4,100, he needs 20 points for value. With no Willie Cauley-Stein, I mean, you got to think that he's going to play at least 26 to 28 minutes. We saw that he was playing that with Willie Cauley-Stein and, off the bench. So I don't see why he couldn't get that tonight. I think it's a great spot.
No Cauley-Stein and no Kevon Looney either. So there's really just no
he's got to deal with
anybody. Yeah, he's competing with himself. He's competing with foul trouble for minutes.
Exactly. Which does worry me with LaMarcus Aldridge down there.
Of course.
I think, we talked about this the other day. He's been playing really well, or me and John talked about it on the pod last night. That's what it was. He's been staying out of foul trouble. He's, like I said, John said it. He's looking like a completely, totally different player. And yeah, I'm fine with him tonight. I think it's one of the better plays.
I got one more name to throw at you before we get out of here, Sean, and that's Chris Boucher. Now, I think it becomes interesting considering they're starting RHJ. Maybe now we see Anunoby play more natural 3, which means their big rotation is going to be RHJ, Serge Ibaka, and Chris Boucher, who we have seen in spurts go put up mammoth numbers. Christian Wood fantasy point per minute type outputs at times.
Sure.
Do we have love for Boucher? Now, he's not cheap. He's 4,800 on both sites. But again, they don't really have front court depth. And if they're not going to play Anunoby in the power forward spot, we got to think Boucher's going to see backup center minutes as he always does. But he's also going to see some time at the power forward, or he sees primarily a lot of center and they move Serge back to his natural position at the 4. Any love for Boucher tonight?
I don't know. I'm kind of worried that maybe they move OG to the 4 whenever RSJ needs a break or something. Fair. And then they put like McCall in at the 3 or something like
Yikes.
that. I mean, exactly. That's my worry. Or move him to the – that's kind of my worry right there is that OG slides over and then he plays the 3 and then, Boucher doesn't play but 18 minutes maybe in relief for Serge at the center spot. He's just priced too high. He's priced for – that kind of production, but he hasn't been. I mean, he has, but he hasn't. He's definitely been one of those guys that's hit and miss. If he's not getting 20, I know we've seen him flash some pretty nice upside in just 20 minutes, but you're taking a really big gamble there, especially paying 4.8 or 4.6 or whatever it is. I think it's definitely just tournaments alone. Obviously, I would not even sniff around for that in cash. It's definitely tournaments, and I don't mind it if you're playing multiples. Yeah, throw him in. Hopefully, maybe there's foul trouble or something like that happens and he gets some extra run. But in my opinion, I'm not going there.
Okay. I think in tournaments, like you said, I think that's a play. I just want to throw it out there, just considering the current matchup and state of the Raptors front court.
It could happen that way. We don't really know the rotation.
Sean, anything else before we get out of here?
Go Jokic.
Go Jokic. Big shout out to John and Pembo who produced tonight's live stream. 18 minutes of roster lock. We will be in subscriber chat until then. Sean, big thanks to you for your playbook, for us joining, and we are out.